Hello, everyone. This is one of our new composition chats in which we're talking about a bunch of topics that are sort of financially services tangential. So obviously, a lot of what we do at composition is work to be able to help people meet their dreams, find their dreams, work through their goals. And this session in particular, I think is pretty interesting because we're going to talk about how you can maybe make your dreams part of your job, your life, how you really can live them out. So I'm here with Simmy Kustanowitz, who I've known for a little while because he came to talk to me in another group about making dreams come true. So that's what we're going to kind of go through today. Simmy, I would love for you to just quickly hit on your background because it's super interesting.
Of course. And Megan, thanks so much for having me on. So I come from the TV world. I spent 20 plus years in television, wearing a lot of different hats. I was a showrunner, an executive producer. I was a network executive, a head writer. And I worked on many different shows. I started off in live television. I worked at TRL, Total Request Live. And that was a live talk show that was on MTV, very popular, where celebrities would come on and promote their projects. During that experience, I really learned how to think like a live TV producer and think on my feet, which has really informed a lot of what I've done since then. And then over the course of many years, I became a network executive working at the Turner Networks, overseeing a lot of shows, mostly in comedy. I was mostly in the comedy genre, sitcoms, reality shows, a number of different kinds of shows. I then took over a show called Impractical Jokers, wound up working very closely with the stars of that show, and then ran their production company for a number of years. And then during that time, I became the showrunner of Impractical Jokers, worked on a number of other projects over the course of that 20-year career, and then moved on to this corporate creative consultancy that I run called Clock Tower Innovation.
So growing up, is that what you wanted to be able to do? It sounds like you were already living out your passion career. Did you want to be a TV producer?
I always knew that I wanted to be in entertainment, be in television or movies. I always had a creative mind. I loved acting when I was younger and writing. And I started off, I actually had an internship at The Daily Show with Jon Stewart in college. And I just fell in love with being on a TV show set. I loved it so much. And so then I worked at NBC in the Page program where I would give, if you've ever seen the show 30 Rock, Kenneth the Page was where I had that tie and I would give tours of NBC studios. I worked on the Today Show and Saturday Night Live. And I always had a passion for entertainment, always. And I knew from a young age, this is what I want to be doing. The story that I tell, and actually the reason why my company is called Clock Tower Innovation, is when I was 11 years old, we were on a family trip to Los Angeles and we went to the Universal Studios lot, and the tram tour was taking us around to different sets. You know, you sit on that tram and they drive you around the lots. And the tour guide said, I have a bit of a surprise. We're going to take you on the set of a movie that's filming right now. You have to be very quiet. And the movie was Back to the Future Part 2. And I was obsessed with Back to the Future. So as an 11-year-old, to turn that corner and see the futuristic clock tower from Back to the Future Part 2, I romantically look back at that as the origin story of my career. And that's why I call my company Clock Tower.
That's great. So you lived up your passion career, but now you're going to talk to us a little bit more about what if you're an accountant by day, but really you see yourself as a rock star. Like, what if you want to make movies? What if you want to be, create the most beautiful gardens, but you're finding yourself, as a teacher. So those are kind of the things. How can you, first of all, kind of figure out this is something that is a good hobby, or this is something that I want to be able to pursue as a career? Like, what have you kind of coached people in kind of thinking that through?
It's a great question, and it's an important distinction to make. But I would say the most important point that I would make is it doesn't have to be black and white. You should be flexible when you're pursuing your passions as part of your career. You may decide, because everybody has different passions and people have different careers, whether that is something that you want to do outside of work, right? You want to keep it. You want to have the separation of church and state. You want to go to work, and then on weekends you want to do X, Y, or Z. That's fine. If you feel like you want to somehow explore that passion as a career or as part of your career, it doesn't have to be, I want to be a musician, but I work in finance, and so obviously those two, there's no overlap at all. I've found through my experience at Clock Tower that there is more overlap than you might think. I mean, I never in a million years thought that I would wind up working in finance and with law firms and with tech firms because I've always been on the creative side. But what I've realized is that companies need to tell their stories, right? Every company is telling a story, no matter what they're doing. If it's a hedge fund, if it is a bank, whatever they are doing, a nonprofit, they're all telling stories and they need to get better at telling those stories. And I'm a storyteller by trade. That's what I've always been able to do. And if you don't connect with an audience in the first 30 seconds of a TV show, they're gone. And so when I work with a comms team or a marketing team, I can provide a very different flavor of storytelling because I come from the TV world. And so, whereas on the surface, you would say, well, there's not much overlap between, let's say, finance and entertainment, there is when you actually look at it from a different approach. So my point in saying that is that whatever your passion is, look for little clues within that passion and see if there might be opportunities. If you're a creative person, look at the marketing team wherever you are or wherever, at various companies. Look and find little pieces that you can pull out of your passion and see if those might exist within the career that you're looking at. And that often winds up unlocking something really special.
And you said to me, enthusiasm without a reality check is just expensive. So let's explore that a little bit. And then maybe you can offer a few cautionary notes about what to do if you are going to try to pursue your passion.
Of course. I mean, I think that it's very important to always have a mix of passion and reality, right? You hear it's such a cliche. People say, just follow your dreams, follow your passion, right? If all you do is watch commencement addresses from college campuses, people say you could do anything that you set your mind to and just follow your passion. I do believe that. I believe that you want to follow your passion. I've done that, and I'm thrilled that I'm remaining creative in all these various industries, and it's a huge source of pride for me. But you have to be realistic as well. And you have to recognize that if you have to make a living, if you're supporting a family, or if you're not supporting a family, but you have a mortgage, whatever it is, you need to know what those numbers are that you need in order to survive, in order to maintain the lifestyle that you've created. And so you want to follow your passion, but you also have to have that reality check at the same time. And so I'm not personally a believer in, throw caution to the wind. You only live once. Do whatever you want to do, and somehow, the world will provide what you need. I think that you need that combination of passion and reality.
So I think, obviously in our case, a bit of shameless, like talking to a financial advisor, that's a lot of what they can do is kind of work through the numbers and give you a reality check. What else I know we've talked about making sure you've got the right people around you. Do you want to kind of share a little bit more about that and how you choose your sort of personal focus group?
So it's very important to surround yourself with people that are going to be honest with you. And, I've done this for 3 years now. The clock tower piece, my first session was with you, and I remember it fondly. And throughout this experience over the last 3 years since I've been doing this, I've seen that there are people who just tell you what you want to hear and say, oh, everything you're doing is amazing. And then there are people who will give you constructive criticism and feedback. And I myself gravitate towards those people. I think that in order to grow, certainly for me, and when whoever's listening to this, if somebody wants to pursue their passion, we all have this inherent desire to be told that what we're doing is great and to have that reinforced. And that's important to have positive reinforcement, but you need to surround yourself with honesty, with honest people. Find the people in your life that will really sit you down and say, listen, this is the right track, this is the wrong track. And I've met with people who have given me tough love. And then when they come back and they say, oh, now you're on the right track, it means so much more.
For sure. How would you say, maybe you can talk even about your own experience, but like, how do you figure out this is my budget for this endeavor, or this is when I know I got to stop? Are there like hard and fast rules around that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to your own risk tolerance, how well you know yourself. Are you somebody who goes into a casino and starts playing blackjack and can get up and walk away? Or do you feel like you need to say, all right, I'm coming in and I'm spending, $200, and the second that's gone, no matter how long it's been, I'm walking away. I feel like you need that. You need to know who you are, and you need to know to what extent you need to set up those guardrails. So for me personally, I find that I need those guardrails. I need to know, look, this is how much I need. And if I haven't made this much, or if I've lost this much, then we need to reevaluate. And I think it's very important to create your own business model. And I use AI a lot for that. I think AI can be an incredible help when it comes to keeping you in check, because it's very easy to become the frog in the boiling water, where you're doing this for month after month after month, and you're thinking, well, it's sort of working. Isn't it working? You need to have that reality check at all times.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Do you have an example like of somebody that you saw well, obviously you succeeded at this, but somebody else that really like kind of took a passion and made it a career, somebody that probably went down a rabbit hole too far? Any cautionary tales there?
Thankfully, I don't have anybody in my life who has gone down the road of trying to be to start something new and has had disastrous effects or a disastrous outcome. But I know plenty of people, certainly in the entertainment world, who have said, look, this is my passion and I'm going to do this. And then at a certain point realize they need to pivot. And I think the hardest thing is not pursuing your passion. It's knowing when you need to pivot a little bit. And again, part of my message is you don't necessarily need to pivot fully, but you might need to say, okay, so maybe I'm not going to be a famous actor. Maybe instead I'm going to I'm going to pursue this job in finance, and I'm going to look for creative outlets either outside of my business, or I'm going to work with a comms team and create content for them, that sort of thing. So I do have, there have been plenty of people that I have spoken to and guided through the years who have come to me and said, I'm pursuing this passion, I'm doing it, I'm all in, and then come back a few months later, a little bit panicked. And so I think that as long as from the outset, you create mile markers and you say, okay, 3 months from now, I'm going to evaluate this. 6 months from now, I need to be at least at here. Otherwise, I need to really pivot. I think setting that up from the beginning, as opposed to just saying, here I come world, I think is a really smart move.
I think that's really, like a business plan. I mean, you should have a business plan and not just hope for the best. And I feel like those mile markers are foundational. How would you recommend finding the people that are your mentor or somebody to gut check your business plan, or, thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that you want to explore a couple different buckets. I think that you want the people, whether it's friends or family, who are not necessarily in the industry you're going into, but will give you honest feedback and can be an outside, set of eyes. I think that's an important thing to do. But then on the other side, I think you need to find yourself a mentor in the area that you're passionate about, and talk to them and use them as a little bit of a reality check. I think again, you don't want to rely entirely on your parents or your spouse or your kids or whoever, who are just going to give you emotional advice. But you also don't want to, on the flip side, just rely on somebody who does not know you personally. So again, I think it's important to create this group of mentors and make sure that you have representation from different parts of your life.
What about now? Okay, I have this passion and I know that I really, I love opera singing. So that's really, I'm going to go down that. Well, what if I spend a year and all my savings becoming an opera singer, and then I realize, well, I really liked singing, but now I hate it, right? Like, because now I'm burnt out. Like, how do you look at the balance of like pursuing a passion versus like, well, I have to live, or now this isn't my passion and I'm stuck in this rabbit hole? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that look, I mean, if you have a passion for opera singing and then after a month, you're tired of it because it's been such a grind, then maybe the passion wasn't quite as strong as you thought. I mean, I think part of one way to try to mitigate that is to balance it and to make it and to pace yourself. I think that when I started doing what I'm doing through Clock Tower, I didn't abandon the work that I was doing in entertainment, right? I'm the executive producer of a show that's on the air right now. And that still sort of scratches that itch while I'm working with business. And I think it's so much of it. I mean, I talk about flexibility, and balance is another word that I use a lot. You want to achieve that balance. If you go all in on anything, there's the danger that you're going to burn out. And so it's not easy to do this, whether it's shifting careers or whether it's saying, I want to explore this passion. But I applaud people who do it. And I think you should try to pursue it, but try not to be too extreme about it. Try to find that balance, because that is a huge key in making it more sustainable and not something that's going to burn out too quickly.
Yeah, I think that that's super key, that balance concept, and saying, well, will I be happy if I can, by the way, I don't have a passion for opera singing, but like, will I be happy if I can, sing locally or whatever and still do everything else? Really kind of looking deep at what that passion is.
Yeah. But this really, I mean, it speaks to the overarching idea, which is balance, right? It's the passion and the reality. You're gonna find people in your life who are going to say, follow your passion no matter what. And you're going to find people who say, you got to make a living, and that's cute, but you're never going to do it. You have to use that sort of, you have to find that Zen middle ground where you can find that balance and navigate it using both of those voices to guide you, but not looking at any of them as the end all and be all.
Any recommendations on, was there like a good book you read, something you listened to that really, and we're not selling anything, in terms of that, but like, where did you look for inspiration as you kind of figured out your steps?
So I think, one of the difficult things about being an entrepreneur and starting your own business is you feel very much like you're on your own, right? And I think finding something that is relatable and motivational and inspiring is very important to help you find a North Star. You are sort of the North Star when you're starting your own business. And so there's a podcast that I love. It's How I Built This with Guy Raz. And that has been a very inspiring podcast for me, because it shows me that, look, as an entrepreneur, there are ups and downs, and it's important to hear stories of people who have made it, who have also had ups and downs, right? So that has been very inspirational for me. There's a book that I'm reading now called The Storyteller's Secret, that is all about how inspiring speakers, whether it's Steve Jobs or Oprah or anybody, how they Richard Branson, how they use storytelling in business. And I've used a lot of what I've read in that book in my keynotes and my workshops, and recognize that it has reinforced the idea that companies need storytelling, and that's what I do better than anybody. And so that has allowed me to thrive with these financial institutions. So I would say those are two really great pieces of media that have helped me.
And then I'm going to bring you back to something you said. I thought it was interesting when you talked about like graduation speeches, right? Yeah, and inevitably they say, the world is yours, go out and do it, and that can be overwhelming, even like as a parent. Like, what do you say when your kid says, I'm going to go be an actor, I want to be like the people on Friends or whatever? Well, there were 6 of them, like out of all of the people that were that level of success. So how do you have thoughts around, like, how do you talk to your kids, whether they're younger kids or getting older, about reality versus following your passion?
I mean, everything that I've said on this in this conversation is these are things that I've said to my daughters. I have 3 daughters. My oldest one just graduated high school, and I talk to them about that idea of balance. And my oldest thinks she wants to go into psychology. She's not sure, but whatever it is, I think you need to remain flexible. And by the way, I think that is an incredibly important thing to keep in mind in the age of AI, because nobody knows where any of this is going. And there are nobody, what is a safe industry anymore, right? It's very, very difficult to find. And so I think you need to remain flexible. I talk to my kids about how early in my career, I had too much tunnel vision on the entertainment side. I never, ever looked outside of entertainment, but even within entertainment, I was a writer. This is what I do. I'm a writer. I'm not an editor, right? So I never learned how to edit. Well, turns out it would have been very helpful to learn how to edit. And I miss that I don't have that skill, and it's something that I might still learn. But, I wish I had paid more attention to business and to law when I was younger, because now, it took me a little while to play catch up, and now I can speak in those terms. But I think that it's so important, and this is what I tell my kids, I would tell anybody to tell their kids, to try to remain flexible, keep your mind open to different careers, different ideas, because things will likely shift throughout your life.
Yeah. And I think really the biggest takeaway is, like, you may be surprised how your passion can fit into a career you never would have thought of, right? Like, so just really kind of knowing yourself and then figuring out how you can apply it.
100%. I mean, I'm living proof. I spoke at a CFO conference recently, and then I last month I spoke at a CMO conference for people in the financial world through Institutional Investor, and every time I get up in front of one of these crowds, the first thought that goes to my mind is, how did I get here, right? How did I wind up in this room of financial leaders? And I do leadership training for CEOs. And that's not anything related to what I did in the first 20 years of my career, you would think. But then you realize that it might feel like a different planet, the financial world from the entertainment world, but it's like landing on a planet, meeting the aliens, and you realize they speak English.
Yeah.
Right. There's something. Everybody has the same challenges, right? People say, oh, we work in silos that don't break down, or we know what we're supposed to do, but we don't know why we're doing it. Or we have these issues with work from home versus being in the office. We have meetings that go on endlessly. These are all challenges that I see at company after company that I experienced myself in television. And so there's so much overlap. And I think there's something almost romantic about the idea that we're all in it together. And it might feel like the people in your lives with different jobs are on completely different planets. But again, I think we all speak the same language. And that, I believe, can help anybody pursue their passion in some way in business if you think just creatively enough.
Love that. So our takeaways are be flexible. And I think, like you said, it's more key, just period, in this age of AI. Like, you are going to have skills. That human connection is always going to be important. So figuring out how to tap that. And then it just sounds like, try to do as much listening as you can before you jump in both feet, right? Like, try to make sure you're prepared with budget numbers, like the right people to talk to, and that is what, set yourself up for success, so to speak.
100%. Lay that groundwork, lay that runway, and set mile markers, and be open to the suggestions of various people in different parts of your life, and remain flexible and balanced.
I think that's great. Well, thank you, Simmy, so much for spending a few minutes with us. And then I think my summary is going to be, it's like landing on another planet, but the aliens speak English.
That's it.
And that'll sum it up. So thank you so much for spending some time.
Thanks for having me, Megan.